See where we are today. Well, Mr. Jones, I'm sure you're just bitterly disappointed. What happened in Wisconsin? Would you like to talk about the crushing, humiliating defeat of your cause? And I sometimes get the impression that they aren't feeling actually very sad about this.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be wrong. And I don't know if they know us very well. I don't know if they know us very well. We've been in this part of the movie before. You know, some of you guys are artists. They call this Act 2. Act 2. Everything goes wrong. The heroes and the sheroes are in despair. And in the next act, they say, never mind. I guess we should just quit. Let's just let the Tea Party have the country. How bad could it be? Is that the movie they think that we're in? They don't know us very well. See, we've had some bad days before. And the one thing I can tell you about this movement is you're going to have to do a whole lot more to us than outspend us 8-1 to beat us in this country and get us to give up. We're not going to surrender, we're not going to back down, and we're not going to let these people run our country. Period. You got to understand who we are. And we've got to quit giving them excuses to write these kind of stories and depress and demoralize our folks. You know, my father and his generation knew what it meant to fight for change for real. Our grandparents, our great-grandparents in the labor movement knew what it meant to fight for change for real. They had to march. They had to risk their lives. Some of them were beaten. They had to go on strike. When going on strike, it gets you killed. When you didn't have any protection. They knew what it meant. Our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents knew what it meant to fight for change for real. My father had to march facing billy clubs, fire hoses. People were put in jail. Some people died for change. And sometimes we act like we want to give up in the face of a really bad tweet. I just can't go on. And then they retweeted it like 7 times. It's just all too much. Is that who we are? I don't know. I'm gonna tell you this. What happened in Wisconsin was awful. But it actually teaches us something. And this movement sometimes needs to learn the hard lesson at the right time. What we learned in Wisconsin is very simple. When we do our minimum as a national movement, I'm not talking about the local forces who fought beautifully. No, the local forces fought beautifully. The local forces fought well. The local forces stood up. The local forces, they created a miracle. They turned a national breakdown into a potential national breakthrough on their own. The labor forces, and let's not forget that the African American and Latino community, especially in Milwaukee, exceeded every expectation and stood up. The local forces, they did the maximum. But they fought alone. Let's be honest now. We're all friends here. Where were the National Democrats? And where were a lot of us? Ooh. There's something wrong with a movement. We spend more time and energy mourning the loss than we spend time and energy securing the win. We have to take accountability as a national movement. When we do our minimum and the other side does their maximum, we lose. That's not, is that simple enough? Do you have to have an advanced degree in politics to understand this? They outspent us 8-1. 8-1. You essentially have the local labor movement fighting 13 billionaires, 12 of whom don't even live in Wisconsin. That's what happened. Now listen to me. Understand this. If we don't like the way we felt when we woke up in June, having observed but not fought, there were some exceptions, but the civil rights establishment never showed up in large numbers. There were exceptions, but the environmental movement never showed up in large numbers. There were exceptions, but the women's movement, the National Democrats, none of us showed up in large numbers. We saw it, we observed it, we munched the popcorn, but we didn't jump into the screen. And if we didn't like the way we felt waking up in June with that outcome in that one state, then it gives us a sense of how we might feel in November if we let the same thing go down in the swing states. That's all. So the question that we have, though, let's be honest, we have a quandary. We know we're supposed to be fired up, and we know we're supposed to be ready to go. But we're pissed off. We're mad. And we have reason to be. We're in a quandary. We like this president, but we're not in love with him like we used to be. Right? Is that fair? We like him. You know, he stands up for Trayvon, and he stands up for gay marriage. We like him, but we're not in love with him. We went from having a crush to feeling crushed. Is that fair? And so it's hard to get fired up and ready to go. Somebody said, I feel like I'm caught between Barack and a hard place. I'm not talking about you, I mean your neighbor. The person next to you feels this way. You're evolved. You know what you must do for your cause. You're not hung up by these psychological problems. But the person sitting next to you, so I'm not talking to you, but your neighbor, who is now struggling with what are we going to do? Because we don't know how to get fired up again. We feel that if all we do is support the president, support the Democrats, get them back in there, that won't make the difference we want. But then we look at the Tea Party.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for those of us who are no longer comparing Obama to the Almighty and are instead comparing him to the alternative, that don't look too good neither. But you know, some people are like, well, I'm going to teach Obama a lesson. I'm just not going to vote or volunteer or do anything because I'm going to show him. And if he loses, I mean, then we'll all learn. And how bad can it be anyway? I mean, they're all the same. Let me just say a few things about this phenomenon. It's not you. It's your friend. Let me just say a couple of things before I move to my main point. If the Tea Party is allowed to score a trifecta, Their ideas already are corrupting the Supreme Court. You see that with Scalia's antics. They already have half of the Congress. If they get the rest of it and the White House, if the Tea Party governs America, if this time next year you are living in a government run by the Tea Party, let me suggest to you that they might use power a little bit differently than we did.
That's true. That's very true.
When they get power, they use it to decimate us.
Yep.
When they get power, listen, the last election was a hope election. This one might be a fear election. They're scared of us, we should be terrified of them. When they get power, they use it to decimate us. Look at what they did in these state houses. They didn't run on destroying the unions, but the minute they got in there, they didn't say, well, perhaps we should make some adjustments to labor law. Let's have a committee. They decapitated our unions. They're running right now talking about, they don't like the EPA. I'm a green guy. I gotta mention some of this stuff. Somebody's gotta mention it. They say they don't like the EPA. They don't say, well, we think the EPA in some areas is overreached and therefore we're going to make some adjustments. They said they're going to eliminate it.
That's right.
Do you think they're joking?
No.
Do you think they're joking?
No.
The EPA has probably saved more American lives in the past 30 years than the Department of Defense. They probably saved more American lives than the Department of Defense. You think they're joking? If they have a trifecta, they will use it to decimate us. There will be no holds barred. We're the only people, in case you haven't noticed in American politics, who will go through all the stuff we went through from 2004, 2006, 2008, finally get power. We've got the Senate, we've got the House, we've got the White House, we have the power. Now we are going to be bipartisan. Can we be your friends now? Is there something we could compromise on here? Any ideas? No. That's how we act. That's not how they act. So I want you to be very, very clear that if they win all the crazy stuff they say, they will do. They will do. And it's worse than that at a moral level. It will be a reward for 4 years of some of the most despicable conduct in the history of our republic. It will reward the worst behavior. Absolute, utter betrayal of the American people by these congressional Republicans. Can you imagine? I try to keep things simple. Let me just explain the moral standing, the moral standard to which they have sunk in the Congress. Can you imagine a beach with a lifeguard? Maybe not the best lifeguard, but an honest lifeguard, and a lifeguard that would try hard. Can you imagine people drowning, a tsunami coming, and that lifeguard doing everything the lifeguard could do to save lives? Can you imagine somebody sitting on a rock, looking at this scene, and thinking to themselves, hey, the more people out here who drown, the more likely it is they will fire the lifeguard, and then I could get the lifeguard's job. Can you imagine the low character of someone who would literally not only hope that more people drown, but help them drown so they could get the lifeguard fired? That is what the Republicans are doing right now in Washington, D.C. They won't even pass their own bills if it would help America right now. They are letting the American dream drown. They are letting the people suffer. They would rather hurt America to get their own job. And we would be essentially participating in helping them get the lifeguard fired so they could have the lifeguard's job when they have done nothing to help the people who've been drowning. That's wrong. See, I have no problem standing up to the people in the Tea Party. I respect them. They're Americans. They believe what they believe. But I'll tell you this. I want to beat them. I want to beat them. I want to beat them. And the difference between, you go, well, that's excessively partisan, Van Jones. Hold on a second. It's a myth in Washington, D.C. that we have too much partisanship. My God, we just have so much partisanship. If only we didn't have it, everything would be great. Have you noticed an excessive amount of partisan principled behavior on the part of both political parties?
No.
We have been so interested in being bipartisan that we've said bye-bye to our principles, bye-bye to our values, and it's time out for that. We need to stand up now for what we believe in. It's time for us to stand up for what we believe in. There's nothing wrong with fighting for what we believe in. The difference between us and the worst of them, it's just like when my kid plays soccer. And my kid is amazing at soccer, by the way. I know you think your kid is good at soccer. My kid is amazing at soccer. And when my kid plays soccer, I want my kid to win. And I don't want your kid to win. I will cheerlead for my kid to win. But here's the difference. As much as I want my kid to win, I don't want my kid to bite your kid or kick your kid. I want my kid to win with honor and dignity, not the kind of stuff we see happening right now from the other side, where they lie and lie and lie and lie and lie. That's not the way to win. We have a responsibility to stand up. But we have to be smarter now than we used to be. If we just support the DC Democrats and the president, we won't get what we want. And if we don't support them, we won't get what we want. That's called a quandary. That's called a quandary. I got some education. Thank you, public schools. Thank you, public school teachers. So what's the answer? And what do we do coming out of Netroots Nation? This is a tough hand you've been dealt. Tough hand. And we have to be as sophisticated as a machine that we now are fighting. We have to be as sophisticated as a system that we are trying to change. We have to do two things that are hard, which means that we have to be twice as committed and twice as passionate as we were in 2008, not half, you see, because we have to do two things. What are the two things? We have to both re-elect the president and re-energize the movement to hold the president accountable to progressive values. That's two tasks, not one. That requires that we learn something from what we just went through over the past 4 years, and really the past 12. My analysis is this. It takes two kinds of power, not one, to get real change. You have to have a president who's willing to be moved, and you have to have a movement who's willing to do the moving. And we have not had both at the same time. Now listen, I'm serious. I'm taking you seriously. First of all, y'all stayed till the end.